Tabletop Technician Network stream. Today we'll be doing a lore deep dive into the world created by Eternal GM for his core d20 system. It was called, right? Or was it core 20?
D20 core system.
D20 core system. I mixed that up. I'll have to fix that later in the description. Sorry about
fine.
that. Sorry for the whole rushing and not being there
it's
on
fine.
time.
I was running around looking for my actual charger and couldn't find it. So when you messaged, I'm like, forget it. I'm grabbing a spare.
Yeah, it's not like I was tip-toppy prepared to. Let's hope that Jeff is also joining us. Otherwise, this looks like a repeat for the Nova Cake stuff that, me having to ask all the questions, even though I was prepared to ask all the questions. At least this time, I have a list prepared. But as always, top tip professionals here, right?
Hey, man. I tried to help consider, and I think we've gone into my setting and stuff the least. And the most I've said about it is, the core system is meant to be just the physics. You're not actually applying a actual setting, but the Mystic Portal verse is the setting at which all that sits in.
Yeah, that's also why I wanted to start with just asking questions about like the foundations. What is even the world you're designed? Because I basically know nothing about it. So if you don't know a point to start with, like, just let's start with setting. Is fantasy? What kind of historical era and region is based on, and so on.
That's why I have loved discussing this one with everybody. It's like, I can't tell you. Does it have... Is it an old Western? Is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? The point of the Mystic Portal verse is the creators or so-called gods or I can't think of the other term for like really old things.
Ancient.
Yeah, but it's like primordial.
Yeah, primordial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like they're called the Agrigori in this. They are things that believe themselves to be created, and they, just by interacting and discussing and thinking of the various things, reality formed over this. You have places that are a cyber-tech reality, but so far across the universe and so many things in the way that the people that from totally different tech settings could never make it. Even with the portals in the Mystic Portal verse, they are connected psionically. So you're not going to go somewhere you can't imagine could exist. You could only go somewhere trying to find what you believe your home to be. So you can have Old West. You can have a Paleolithic setting. You could have Star Wars.
So is it more like a multiverse or just a large universe that with different rules depending on where you are?
Large universe with the same core rules for its physics, hence the D20 core system.
So that's how the name came to be.
Yes.
But you would probably say it has that foundational existential baseline laws that those primordial beings create different pockets of reality. Those primordial beings, are there gods? And if such, what kind of gods? Like, tell me more about them.
Not really gods. See, these things can effectively, like, they are the OP thing in my reality as kind of a creation tool. But they can just go and forget about your existence and you don't exist. They are directly tied into reality, yet they themselves believe they were created. So one of the things they'll do in this setting, so like a pure one, call it high fantasy, because effectively it is, but they can interact through other people like a god would. and actually come and show themselves and talk to them. So one of those organizations is the Agrigorian Order. You would end up working with some of its members to kind of do what their actions were. They do not act anymore. They do not personally involve themselves, because the one time they did, they all decided to create something. And that's where we decided to make a big mistake that happened. And this is kind of what created things like Cthulhu. They don't touch this anymore. They decided, no, we're not going to make things directly anymore. So the Agrigori have their positions of, we want it to go as it is, we want it to break down, or we want to establish order. Now they try and find people who can kind of lead their charge in the actual physical planes. So are they gods? No, they think themselves to be created. Can you tell the difference? Not really.
Sorry, still a little bit sick for those who were in the stream yesterday. Already know that. So they believe themselves to be created, but they don't know what created them, right?
No, they're referred to as the children of the light, because the moment that light came into reality and seemed to pass a little bit, they became aware of their own existence. So it's one of the mysteries we've kind of left into our setting, up to the player, reader, the game master to kind of have their own position, but there to be no answer.
Purposeful hole in the lore. Got it. So you say it. The setting basically has any setting you can imagine. But I presume you have pre-designed parts of that setting, right?
Yes. Like right now, we are, as soon as the D20 core system part is done, Secret Realms is the next project. Secret Realms is our first game module that's meant to plug into or add on top of the core system. This will add psionics as well as magic, and we'll add 3 different worlds that all are kind of different in design for the type of fantasy they're meant to represent. So we will actually make a series of worlds for each type of setting that we're going to add that doesn't exist around our setting called the Unkindled World. The Unkindled World is our world, as if all lore and legends had some bit of truth to them, explained with our setting. So if you are one of the Unkindled, you're walking around in our world like me and you believe in it. Magic doesn't exist. There's not all this crazy fantasy cultic stuff that people can, raise the dead. And then you have the kindled version, which is you have become aware of magic. You were brought into one of these societies that is trying to help hold magic back from coming through one of the broken mystic portals. And it's an old group aligned that has decided, no, we're going to stop this. If too many people start accessing it, it's going to overpower it. And we're done. So you can play in that setting with or without magic, with or without psionics. But since we already have a great understanding of our own world's history, you can take the Paleolithic book that will come out all the way to our Star Wars kind of Star Trek level technology one, and actually just take that book and apply the technology onto the Unkindled World. Now you can play the Unkindled World at an upper level of technology. You can choose to add magic or psionics in. Is it all presence in the reality? Yes. Do we know the rules, mechanics, and crafting for every bit of everything there? Yes. You also, as game master with our system, will never have to play with a type of genre or any specific type of technology. You can choose this by designing your campaign setting while designing your adventure, all in session 0, and you're in complete control of it, and it's all one set of rules.
Yeah, cat is being a rascal, aren't they?
Yeah. He walks outside to the same cat that gave him a teardrop tattoo on his cheek by biting him. So he does
Oh.
not need anyone.
So there's another cat outside.
Yeah, he's like,
Uh,
rematch.
oh yeah, I remember when I still had a cat. When another cat got into her garden, she was like,
Yeah. No, he's the little guy saved from his mom because his mom got pregnant and then started beating him off from being able to eat the food. So I'm like, no, 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 you're the
"Oh,
cute Halloween cat.
oh,
You
poor
jumped in
guy
my car.
or gal." Is it?
It's yeah. Now I
Yeah.
called him Matsuba because I got this thing about Pokemon, but the name Morty didn't sound great in English as compared to Matsuba. And he resembles a black kitten that I had that passed away before it had a chance to grow.
Oh,
And Morty is the ghost gym trainer.
oh, come on,
So
stop breaking my heart. uh,
it was a good treat.
sorry, yeah.
No, it's fine, man.
Yeah, that's also why I was hoping not to be the only question asker. Lean back a bit, just throw in a bit. But I guess I should have learned from last time with Nova Cake. uh, all right. So, what kind of supernatural element does this unkindled world have? Does it have secret organizations or cults or just secret wizard schools? What's going on
Man.
there?
So, all right. So, beyond just take your random vampire story, take, oh, I can't remember the name, that famous monster hunter that's had a few movies made
Van
about him.
Helsing?
Yes. Um, take the SCP Foundation, take random things like that.
Oh
If
no.
we could find a way to add it into the unkindled world, like for instance, why did and what is up with the Bermuda Triangle? I don't know. I'd like to not tell everyone what we've been talking about. That's the actual reason why that was going on. Hey, why don't we have vampire stories from certain countries? I don't know. I'm going to find an in lore reason for all of that to happen. So if we got secret organizations, we have magic, we have psionics, we have stuff that is just us going, how can we even add that in? Like there's an old vampire book from White Wolf Publishing. They have in the back of one of their books random things that their people found that you could use in your story. Well, I'm going to refine that selection because it had cool stuff like, hey, there's 1 in a million people that walk through a thermal detection thing in an airport and they show up cold bodied. It's probably just a glitch, but you could say that's vampires. And I'm like, yeah, good. So I've always thought of things like that. That's what we were gonna do with the Unkindled world. Things like Therendal, where that's our main world right now, where the Axehead Isles is gonna be on. We are doing our best to root as much in like reality and physics as possible. Like our friend Audie, he knows so much about geology and just related fields that I'm like, hey, can we like have all these rainbow colored crystals? Like, big fan of Crash Bandicoot, but we got this bland kind of setting here and this river thing going across. Can we have those crystals in? All of a sudden, he's changed the entire rock formation of the whole continent. This is now a blasted off piece from some asteroid or comet hitting the main continent, Dracavaria, that it blasted off from. This now has crystals that have formed in different colors with water reflecting through it and gold particles happening. So our setting picture of our main continent is going to have some rainbow colored clouds with golden flecks on it. This is also a really dangerous place with pirates and giant insects. So now you have rainbow clouds just sitting there, and I'm like, Audie, you're amazing. I said rainbow clouds and crystals from Crash Bandicoot. You give me this?
Yeah, I just had to think back when you mentioned the Bermuda Triangle. The funny thing about that, if you look at the statistics, the Bermuda Triangle is nothing special. It actually has a below average ship loss rate. But of course, there are the legends. And
I love the theory, actually, that there some of the gauges for planes had this type of gas that could rise up. And there's actually a higher percentage rising up in that area. If this was to hit old school plane dials and stuff, they were showing on this History Channel thing how it would actually make it look like you're now shooting straight up. And so to prevent your like losing air density or your ears popping and stuff, they would drive the plane straight down into the ocean thinking they're going straight up. So it was a lie to your like technology, basically. I cannot think of the word. Your display was lying to you. That's my favorite theory, because there's a little science backing it. There's a little research that went into it. And it would make sense why it's not every single plane that ever crossed it.
But yeah, statistically, Bermuda Triangle is actually on average safer than other areas of the world. I just find it funny how legends built upon it and just ignore the statistics, and then, oh, somebody got lost. That's the proof that it's true. And yeah, like, especially a few hundred years ago, it was normal for ships to get lost in sea. It was an insanely risky business. But yeah, sorry. Of course, you have a fictional world, and there you can ham up and change whatever you want. But it's I just find it funny how legends are built, and then when you actually look into that, it's like, this is actually totally normal. uh, but yeah, we're talking about fantasy here. We're not talking about the real world. Mm. You mentioned you have other worlds, so what else do you have prepared?
So right now, offhand, one of my questions here actually grabs the favorite worlds. So out of everything, I've already mentioned the Unkindled world, and I've mentioned Therendal. Therendal was a world that's built differently. Normally, I will actually follow my world building method from the beginning, but this one I was just like, no, I've got 3 locations that are just so cool. So it's the only world I've built around a location. And it's where we're starting in, because it's generic fantasy and it's got 2 micro settings we can kind of start with. Forsaken Lands has to be one of my favorites. Have you ever played Skies of Arcadia?
No, sorry.
Okay. So you ever seen one of those settings where everyone's on ships and for some reason they're floating through the clouds?
Yeah.
And there's
I know the basic setting of Skies of Arcadia. I should have mentioned that.
Okay, so it's called the Forsaken Lands because in Secret Realms, the understanding of everybody is that the things they're calling gods are gods, when in fact these are player characters that have risen past level 30, past Paragon levels and into the beyond, which is now divinity levels, if you will. So these people are just really, really powerful, and they can't act on the earth or they're going to destroy something. It's like, I want to help my follower. I'm going to no, you don't lift him up. You just move that country. Like, difference of scale here. So they have to work like the gods we're used to in D&D. So they come off like that. They believe that they were forsaken. Long story short, the gods didn't forsake them. They just had goals that led them elsewhere. So when they left, it allowed someone to do things I'm not going to give details to that poisoned the whole underside of the earth, activated some of these Komori crystals, which allowed them to make the technology of flying ships, and why certain pieces of land floated up. Something with the poison and the actual specifics of the planets what activated that. So you've got this whole topside world that could be all one piece and just pirate haven doing whatever you wanted flowing around. But it's a totally different view of the world when you go to that water world styled under the ocean and go see the world as it was. So one's all happy, nice, and piratey. The other one's very messed up.
In what way messed up? Other than being on the water.
Well, I'm going to design most of the cultures on the top of being very proud of their ancestry and their heritage, their culture, just everything to it. And then have the biggest smack in the face when you realize it's everyone's ancestors' fault why they can no longer walk on the surface. And it's kind of one of the bigger secrets about that setting.
Okay.
We're planning a module that will basically be like to the surface.
Does this setting have any multiple races, or is it just humans or something else?
But we're so yes, besides your standard little six of the human, elf, orc, gnome, dwarf, and halfling, we have all sorts of stuff. And for us, all of those are species where like a forest elf, a high elf, a sea elf, that's its race.
Mm-hmm.
We do have ancestry and lineage for certain things like the Volendraw, which I'll get into in a moment. They have so many different variations, you need those extra two categories. So for an example, the Monterey are humanoid animals, but the Tyranny are humanoid avians. All of them get a fly bonus. Unless you pick penguin, it will tell you that your fly speed now becomes an underwater swimming speed. So the selections below species and below race are only going to change options from above, where the race will typically change something if needed, as well as add more bonuses.
Okay.
So
Interesting way to approach it. But it does help with balancing.
thank you. It's actually a big headache going over every single one of them and going, all right, so the human's getting this many extra bonuses because this thing technically is like worth two of those. So if I give a creature two of these bonuses, they got to have four less. And it's a balancing thing where a human keeps getting a little more. And eventually that's going to stop. And that's where our character creation points come in to kind of defining the difference. But it's a headache. Yes, it's more balanced. It's probably something I would not recommend designing, not knowing what you're going into. But I'm this far, so.
You mentioned those point system. Reminds me of the trade system and especially the alternative heritage rules for Ishanakon World Shapers, where you have literal points as assigned to traits. So to make your own stuff. But okay, this stream is not about Ishanakon World Shaper, it's about your world. So
I will say, yes, those are great little systems. The only reason we came with the character creation point is because I do want a half demon character, and that's going to have like 6 different features it's given. So I need to have that to know how far to walk back to something like humanoid wolf, humanoid bird, underwater kind of creature, to now all the way over to generic just human. You're not getting night vision or claws or breathe underwater. You just have all that extra time you spent on skills and tools. But those are probably the more boring ones, except for like the half demon. That's going to be interesting. But the Valen Ra are our species that exist with having reptile, dinosaur, and dragon-like humanoids. So if that's your thing, you want to play something in that realm, the Valen Ra are going to be it. Garwaluks are four-armed humans. If you know what Goro is, you're well aware what this is. Elementals might not be what everyone expects immediately. These are actual parts of an elemental spirit that got trapped in a humanoid shell. So a lot of their power is restricted, yet they come with boosted resistance and to their element, weakness to their normal, what it would be, and some other small abilities depending on the element you choose.
So they're more like those elemental humanoid hybrids like in D&D. I forgot their name. Do you know them?
Nazi? Was it the elemental?
Let me just look it up real quick. I think that would be faster than.
Agreed.
Genazi, that was the one.
Yes. I said Genazi. Okay. How close?
Yeah. Sorry, I just totally forgot the name. So
No
those are I don't know if you know the lore about them.
I thought they were more genie connected, but I might have been wrong.
I mean, the genies are elementals in that sense. So they are still half elemental, half humanoid, even though usually the elemental half is a genie. Or Jinn. Jinn is the general term, I think, and genie are specifically the air ones. They're also the Tao, earth, Ifrit, fire, and Marit for water, I think it was. But yeah. So basically, they have a humanoid body with slight elemental characteristics. That's what I was pointing at.
Oh yeah, except that I would say with the Genasi, you have more of a color differentiation of the skill. Their hair can resemble it. These guys literally just kind of booted out the soul that would have gone into this body. It's a rare occurrence, but whenever it does happen, you're literally just slapping like a lightning elemental inside of this. The only way you know is, well, first off, lightning elementals probably not getting electrocuted. And second off, their eyes will actually resemble their element being trapped within the pupil. So like a fire elemental actually has glowing little eyes. A lightning one, they might spark. Haven't gotten all the art done for that stuff. There's still some creative decisions, but those are the elementals. Now, if you've ever seen Hellboy 2,
I've seen I've seen the second one once.
Okay, so do you remember the guy that could, like, he was in a suit, but he could leak the gas out of him, and he brought the little creature alive, and he also unlocked the door by moving the gas that was him into the giant door, and it unlocked all the mechanisms?
Yeah, sadly, I don't remember that much from the second movie.
All right, you don't have to remember that much. Just, there was this gaseous dude that could do stuff with his body being in gaseous form. Combine that with the hardening element of Martian Manhunter. Now you have a gaseous entity that can solidify or gasify its existence. And you allow the gases to have either a biological or non-biological effect. So if you're wanting more of a technician character, you're going to pick non-biological. Now you can actually gas your body, like move your hand in gaseous form into this lock and unlock it. It allows your ability to function as a tool. Where the other side, you're basically acting as if you are kind of a necromancer in a way. You can raise bodies, have them talk in dead form, kind of like they did in Hellboy 2. You probably also could lock like part of your leg and use that
Wait,
gas.
the scene where he made the dead one talk, wasn't that the first Hellboy? Close to the finale when they wanted to find out where the hideout of the bad guys were?
Yeah, all the high elf, the elven stuff, that was the second one.
Yeah, that was definitely the second one. But
Yeah,
I specifically remembered the scene where you mentioned raising a dead so that he can speak. I'm pretty sure that was the first movie where Hellboy did that, wasn't it?
No, I think that might have been the thing in the first one. I'm talking about the little creature they had on the table so that they knew the location of the elfin market underworld. They were trying to find their.
Okay. Then.
Either way, that's the Vossrelu, and that's kind of what we have for them so far. So those 4 are probably my personally 4 favorite species because of the variety and stuff they kind of can add to the gameplay. But no, we've got the variety coming in. I've got about 20 different races between elf, orc, and elf and orc. Yeah, about 20.
That's a lot of variation. What kind of orc versions do you have? I'm a big orc fan, at least if it's the warrior with honor version of the orc, like in World of Warcraft. I like those orcs.
We do have the traditional like World of Warcraft and personal favorite Warcraft like 2 and 3. That was my heyday of it. So I really do like the old traditional orcs. So those are our Grunch and basic version of an orc. That's their race. I don't have the PDF on me right now, so I don't remember some of these names. But my 2 favorite orcs break the mold so much. So one gives up a bit of their strength and constitution bonuses to add it towards intelligence and wisdom, so that they're a bit more of a crafting, technological based one. You have one that over generations got so tired of having a deficit to practicing magic that they learned these temporary runes they could carve into their bodies, like all over them, and imbue mana potions into it so that they would glow blue. Turns out after about 10 generations, they start being born with now white and pitch white hair. They already had pitch black skin and white eyes, but now their hair matches it, and they're born with these runes inscribed on them. Whenever they're active, they have a like 10-foot radius of a blue light kind of glow going around them. They also are the only powerful magical orcs in the game. So we took some of the traditions, like our high elves flip the idea of standards on its head. The high elves in our game are the traditional humans that went, oh, wait, elves, y'all practice magic? Die. And now the elves are the ones that did it. These fools went to the lengths of separating on, well, specifically one country, world, Azrael. They switched out from being a part of forest elves and became the plains elves, like the plains, not their plane, a location of land. And they eventually said, you know, the one thing that's missing from our people now is that we have nothing to believe in but ourselves. We had so much more power, even if it was a false belief, to believe in the forest god. Well, now they create a very much monotheistic religion and use some of their psionics people that they've gotten to help convince the people. So they've created a fake religion. They became the high elf people and slowly started altering their genetics over time to look different than their previous ancestor group, the plains elves.
So how does faith interact with your world, is it actually capable of creating power, even if there's not a deity behind it?
Technically, when a deity is giving you power in this, they're giving you some of their permanent mana and magical ability in that effect. Because, like, let's say you're talking about a clerical god. This isn't a clerical god. This is some character that was a cleric that reached all high levels of power. And now, whatever god they were working with, they kind of are now up there with them or booted them out of the slot that's available for power at that level. So now they're the ones handing a bit of their power to where it's like, oh, I like the way you think. Let me bestow upon you some, here, let me shove that mana inside of you. And okay, now you can do a clerical thing. Let me teach you this stuff. So it's more of an interaction directly, and it's not divine as much as we would perceive it as such. It's kind of like you going, I really wish I had food, and a god coming down and setting some down, kind of like you could set some crumbs down for an ant. I'm pretty sure it thinks about divine intervention after you have fed it and not killed it.
Little rascal is distracting you.
He asks for permission to leave the room. It's kind of hard not to let him when he doesn't scratch the door. And he's the youngest cat. Got the best manners, the best bathroom habits. Like, he came in at like 2 months old and was using the litter box where one of the other cats is like, I don't like you, you're new. And I'm like, yeah, but he uses the box.
I wanted to ask, yeah, but you mentioned that, all right, how faith interacts with gods, but those high elf made a fake god, or a fake religion, but why would they do that if faith itself doesn't grant them any sorts of power, right? So that's my question. How does faith interact with a god that does not exist? Kind of like in Eberron, where faith alone can manifest clerical power, even if there's no deity behind it.
No, their god. And the way they did this, because they accepted we could never just manifest something like one of these things can just come down. So by using psionics, they can convince people that they have smelt, heard, seen, experienced the touch of various things. With certain Komori crystals, you can amplify effect like you could extend Wi-Fi. So this allows them to kind of, over their whole kingdom, expand this effect. Now, to finish the touches of it, this god hates magic. All high elves are extreme bonuses to physical combat. They are martial badasses out of the elves. If you want to play your warfaring elf, these are literally the guys. They have disposed of and rejected magic to the point of, if someone in their society is begging for a miracle, they're probably going to be thrown in prison. They've taken the past 100 years very seriously on keeping magical belief in check and magical hatred on the rise.
So the religion is mostly just there to control the population and make sure they hate magic. Ah, okay.
Yeah, long-term goal is they're wanting to take over the continent of Gelbane on Azrael. This is their original homeland. They have a separate base on the southeastern continent on the opposite half of the world. But they have been running kind of secretly with threats the politics of the Kaiser family, the ruling family of Azrael, the current head member of the Forest Elf politics side.
I find it funny how you continued the tradition of elves being a-holes. Now this time it just has taken a bit more of an even extremer authoritarian vibe.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, humans are going to have their own versions of being screwed the heck off, but
I mean, we're talking about a world where their ancestors were evil enough to cause a cataclysm on purpose or not, or
Hmm.
careless enough at least. So, I guess the world has generally more of a darker tone? Question mark.
Depends. If you go to like Gelbane is almost your traditional like fantasy area. There are places that haven't been explored that can be explored if there wasn't dangerous creatures. Like it's got all of the locations and items and history for you to find. And it's generally got a very positive kind of uplifting vibe to the setting itself in Gelbane. It's not until you start to uncover a bit of the story. You know, I want the first adventure that's placed there. I've changed through the name of it, but basically it deals with you dealing with the results of a necromancer and an alchemist doing stuff in the background, and you have no idea at first. So this is the main confrontation you deal with at first. When you're done, the story is going to change to where you were pushed off on a mission to a burial and you can't get back, and you start hearing word of what's gone down. So we will actually tell a longer form story where you can run each adventure how you want. Well, we're going to tell that overall story. You'll experience places where you go and everyone will rally up against the bad guy. You'll go to places where the bad guys have everyone so afraid they'll come at you just at the chance of maybe this will make us get beat less as hard or taken from. Like, I love expressing the varieties of settings and fantasies within a singular world. So you will have happy places, you will have very dark places, and anything in between.
Okay.
I'm a very big lover of psychology and plan on using it deeply in all of our setting designs.
Okay, more questions. Yeah, again, I guess you did mention you have three settings ready, right? So what's the third
That's
one?
well, technically, that one is just for these three, like each of our game modules. And I guess let me say that real fast. When I say a game module, keep in mind, let's talk video game for a minute. The D20 core system is the gaming engine you were designing a game in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already got all the physics, the rules, how things are going to work. Secret Realms, it's our first game module. This is actually going to provide worlds, extra items, and other stuff. So this is like now playing, okay, we're making a fantasy themed game, and you start narrowing in that game game engine down to work on specific stuff. So now let's say you have the world of Crash Bandicoot. And so one of our adventures is actually like the video game. This is now Crash Bandicoot 1. So where we might make an expansion to this game, that's an actual sequel, an expansion, or DLC. So when we say like, do we have different worlds? I have like 15 on the back burner. I have 3 that are going to be specifically for I'm going to put into the core system book. And I have 3 that are going to come with a basic description for Secret Realms. Our first official 2 that we're covering will be Therendal and Azrael, the 2 I've mainly been talking about. That's where the Axehead Isles, a micro setting, is coming from. That's our 3rd release. So by the time we get the 3rd book, you have the D20 core system in the form of the basic rules and physics, Secret Realms. Now you have everything our game system can offer, from basic technology all the way up to magic and psionics, plus some actual settings. And then Axehead Isles, a micro setting with a built-in adventure, all Barovian style. So when we say we have 3 worlds for our setting. It's more like for each game module. Can you go from the cyberpunk game and come to Azrael? Yeah, it's going to be a bit awkward for the people on that world, and you might get attacked as alien invasion. You're showing up in a spaceship to a world that has Komori crystal based technology. So you got Magitech, but you still have a fantasy world. You coming in on a flying ship's going to scare the crap out of this world. But you could, and that might be what alien, appearances and stuff have been throughout the history of our world or the unkindled world. Like, why'd they jack a cow? That looks like they're freaking brother species from where they come from. They were wondering why y'all were forcing them to be on all fours. That's some funny stories thrown in like that because of this.
That reminds me of one sci-fi setting that or more like a story, a hypothetical video game that I designed in my head, where the main evil alien empire abducts humans because the biology is, by sheer coincidence, extremely similar to those aliens. So they make excellent test subjects. So that's the reason why they specifically abduct humans and experiment on them.
I can,
what?
I was like, I can see that.
just reminded me when you told the cow story. That looks like like our bros. What are you doing? So it's just an animal.
Yeah, I saw this clip of something. I'm probably gonna spend $5, even though this could be a horrible sci-fi movie. I just can't pass up the opportunity to watch what a religious person believes the world would respond if God actually showed up, but he looks like the devil. And I'm like, this is priceless.
I mean, depends, of course. Like, vastly different forms of religions have vastly different interpretation of how the devil looks like, right? Even the traditional devil that you're probably thinking of, that's not biblical. That's actually has Roman roots in a sense. And they took Roman satire. How are the gold people called that play music and just party all day? Satire? No.
I am drawing a blank, but I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, the traditional devil design is based on that. Turning mythology of wait, what was the name? Heidnish. Heathen. Heathen? Yeah. Sorry, my mind is. So why not just use the internet?
This is true.
Heidnish. Pagan. There we go. That's basically it's based on just taking pagan symbol and saying, yeah, no, that's demonic, right? So, ironically, if you look at the Bible, the devil is never described as red with hooves and horns or anything like that. He's not really physically described ever, I think.
No, there's one moment where it's like the crown of this many points riding upon a throne like this. The description given, I've heard many priests go, if you look at every other version of the devil or Lucifer or Satan described in the Bible, they're formless. They're described as more of a force of nature. This was something different. And I don't actually see a really good answer, but they're basically saying this could have been God and the devil's like lead general or something that people accredited to. And it's like, All right, but yeah, that's the only physical description I remember.
I mean, okay, yeah, there are some prophecies, but then the question is, in what sense is it literal or it's a metaphor for a human? uh, of course, the theory about 666 being actually a reference to Nero, right, and not Satan.
Hmm.
Even though I guess they are parallels between Nero and Satan in the perspective of that time, the king of the world, as Satan is supposed to be, right? Anyway, we're getting
True,
sidetracked.
but it sounds like an interesting setting.
Uh, all right, questions. Again, now we come at the point. I mean, you did. Uh, are there superheroes in your unawakened world?
Hmm? Yeah, like I'd mentioned with the look at it like a video game. We're gonna have what's plug-in modules, or you could call like an expansion set. At some point, we're gonna have, yes, our superheroes. You're gonna have vampires, werewolves, just your whole pantheon of darker things you can play in a more horror setting. As well as a one that works off of like a zombie apocalypse called Contagion. So these will be able to be plugged into literally any game module we've designed. So they'll work by actually giving you a condition on our character profile, and that condition, like, no, we don't own the Flash, but it's a great example. So, like, let's say you are playing the Flash. Well, you're going to have the condition of Speed Force level 1. Level 1 Speed Force would multiply your speed and your intelligence by a certain amount of a magnifier. And so, what this does is, let's say your speed is 10, and that means you can move 20 feet. It multiplies it by 100. So now you're able to move 2,000 feet in the same time period. So what this does is it lets you use the same character profile, still have all the level up bonuses as every other character, including non-superhero, and the conditions being a multiplier or negative supplier of various things we can do to your character. Like, obviously, if you're a vampire, you're going to have certain weaknesses and stuff like that. It's all done through a condition so that we don't actually have to make a new character profile or anything. We just have to make the different superpowers, vampire bloodlines, stuff like that. So 100%. I'm going to get actually really weird and twisted with it, because our world, the vampires are a little different than normal. Like, you have your religious version, you have your curse version. But what about a reality where everything is cyclic in the way the energy works? What happens if some of that energy forces its way back? Well, this would corrupt or pervert the purpose of the energy. And so you can have it in possess something, and then it dominates and controls. Well, welcome to the first vampire, or maybe something else. If it was a different species that was infected, maybe that virus or energetic takeover would affect something totally different. What about something coming from the world of the mental planes? The mental planes is where your dreams, your thoughts, all of that go after you die. So what about the desire and will to live as an entity forcing its way into the physical world? This makes an immortal of some kind, but what kind? And a perverted, corrupted version, a darker version, if you will, of whatever it infects and takes over. So when we're looking at things like vampirism, lycanthropy, and immortals of various types. We're going to play around with that concept and end up coming up with things that legitimately haven't been done, because like what is a vampire if it infects a an elemental? Like what's that going to do? The energy of what a vampire is combined with the energy of an primal energy of an element that lives in another plane that's trapped here. What does that combination breed if not a vampire? So when we've added those in, we also gave ourselves a creation method to come up with new ideas.
So, speaking of evil creatures, what about demons and angels, or generally heavenly and hellish planes of existence? Do
All
they
right.
exist?
Not in the traditional form of when you look at angels, you look at demons, they're pretty clear that they're opposite sides. I wanted our perception of angels and demons to be real to the people in our setting. But at least on the Unkindled world, they really believe it's angels and demons. When in effect, this is what we call ethereals and Saturnals, and they're not the entire part of the picture. You have Vildaraks, which are actually both sides attempting to combine and make I cannot remember the name of that word. Basically, a combination of the two. And what happened is both
Nephilim, I
sides.
think. Or
Nephilim, as far as I remember, was the combination of one of those two with a human.
okay, then I remember that incorrectly.
In this one, actually, they're trying to combine the actual spirit of two, like a Zethernal had to be killed or sacrificed, depending on the side. Same with the ethereal. What this caused was something to create, since they are the representations of law and chaos, not good and evil. These two things combined and made a thing of order. And immediately, it didn't create one, it created three: one of good, one of neutral, and one of evil. All forms of order. And their goal is to end this conflict between both sides at all cost and establish order. So actually, they created their worst enemy. So these things were some of the first things that came into existence after the Aggregor. Like, yep, we're not going to make anything else, because these things just, at first, the largest things, the things that combines in the most amounts of energy or the largest constructs came first, as it was working its way towards the central inner planes. So these guys are as much something that you would count on the power level of angels and demons, but you would want to throw away your typical understanding of angels and demons. You're more likely to be friends with a Zethernal as a paladin than you are as a paladin with an ethereal. An ethereal looks at you as less. This is ordained natural law. I am born more powerful, so you are below me. But Zethernals are like, dude, this world's chaos. Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I can kill you, but like, that doesn't mean I roll you. Like, hence where the let's make a deal comes from. They're more willing to be logical businessmen about it and make deals. It actually has a lot of roots of our understanding and perception of angels and demons, but we're modeled to where you can see how we got that understanding of them, and at the same time how we're completely wrong. Both have wars amongst themselves more than they do with each other.
Okay, interesting take on that. What would you say is your favorite part of the lore?
Favorite part of the lore? Some of the weirder things. Like, this is a question I didn't send because I was like, oh, there's no way we're gonna get to it. Here we are. So the side of order of the Agregori. Remember, they said they stopped wanting to make stuff. This wasn't a group decision. This was mainly the ones who were neutral. They're like, no, 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 this causes too much change. Let's let it ride as it is. The good side that wants order cannot let reality continue to grow and expand. So it creates a pocket dimension like cube thing with the power to trap infinity in it because they're trying to stop the expansion of space. They want to put it in a ball so that they can tweak and control and limit it. Well, they failed. The moment they created this box and trapped infinity in it, infinity was immediately everywhere in an infinite box and everywhere without it. So they accidentally created the labyrinth of infinity. This is a place that connects everywhere to everywhere because they tried to stop and trap the spirit of infinity. But it is infinite. It is everywhere. You cannot contain what cannot be understood on its size. Like, they made it based off of their understanding. And then the moment they made an understanding of it, it grew way bigger because you're not actually able to comprehend the size of infinity.
I
So
find it funny because, in a mathematical sense, as somebody who started studying math, you can actually contain infinity in something. So,
but there's rules to that, being that that object has to be basically infinite plus a something else, which is allows it to. There's different stages of infinities, and I'm just saying that is something the Agregori had no comprehension of at that moment, and that's why it failed. Could you? Theoretically, if you can create and erase reality, you should be able to make like a multi-tiered, infinitely growing gradiential infinite depth, kind of like the abyss. Well, they messed up. The ones that are trying to create order are extremely prideful. They do not believe they can make mistakes. They thought they were perfect. It's to show the flaws and the limitations of the Agregori, while at the same time showing off their power. But that's probably one of the coolest things because, yeah, it shows how flawed these great, massive, powerful beings can be. And also, it's talking about infinity and a labyrinth that is now infinite, yet is outside of but within space at the same time. This is our version of the infinite staircase from the Dragon game.
it reminds me a tiny bit. I know it's not quite related, but that SCP object that when you put it inside a room or building, the inside of the building gets bigger and bigger without the outside actually changing. So you can make an infinite space, more or less. I mean, it's technically not infinite; it grows infinitely, but at every given moment, it's not infinite.
Is that the infinite IKEA?
No. The infinite IKEA is something else.
Okay.
Infinite IKEA is, in a funny way, has more parallels to the object you described as it is an actually infinite room which has exits to every reality to one specific IKEA. In that sense, the infinite IKEA, yeah, it has more parallels. But no, it's a weird object that you can, while it is inside a room, the inside of the room grows and the building becomes like an impossible room that grows and grows, even though the outside stays the same. And and one of the things is, first they were like, okay, we're keeping it outside then, and then there was like, wait a second, is it making the universe grow infinitely if we don't put it in a room?
Um, that's why I love the idea of the back rooms being the one SCP that is uncontainable.
Yeah, but actually, there are many SCPs that cannot be contained. There is actually an SCP category, which means it cannot be contained, at least not reliably. And the backrooms is actually not an SCP. It's an.
Well, I know it's not, but in my mind,
Yeah,
I like it. Some.
Yeah, of course, nobody's stopping your headcanon, and I would never dream of, but I just wanted. Mm. But yeah, another thing that reminded me of the idea of, yeah, let's contain infinity, and then just failing because you cannot comprehend infinity is a comic book that I once wanted to write. We're only 6 pages, 6 days. Anyway, there is somebody who has full control over the narrative plane. So basically, he has powers which are almost on par with the narrator, just reforming reality as he likes. The way he got defeated is by somebody who more or less becomes an avatar of the creator, basically God. And yeah, he can warp reality as he wants, but no matter how much he expands his own power through that warping, his mind is limited. And therefore, he cannot keep up with the infinite power of God.
That's pretty cool. No, that's funny because, like, in our superhero thing, I planned on having my version of a Peter Parker character. Like, they would be so much more powerful if they would stop joking around. But I added the concept of the guy doesn't actually comprehend his power. He's given the name the narrator because he can literally narrate reality, and it happens that way. This guy could go, yes, our enemies decided to turn themselves. Oh, see, there they are. And it would just happen. So there's scenes like the guy's like, dude, we're gonna die. And the narrator's like, what do you want me to do about it? I don't know what I can do here. It's not like we have a truck I can make show up. And the truck shows up. Shut up. It's like, why don't you just say the tree lets us go? That's a fair point. I wasn't even thinking about my power like that. Guy could be the most powerful thing in reality. He completely doesn't comprehend his power. That was my version of a narrator.
The funny thing is, in that comic, the narrator is actually an entity, which is above the creator god. Like, the creator god is the canon creator of the universe, but the narrator is the actual creator of the universe. So the narrator in the comic is actually me, like the real me. Well, yeah, that comic goes really meta after a while. Like,
you got to do like Excel Saga and have your own character come up and like take you out, and then the universe pops up. It's like, no, you can't do that, and just restarts the episode.
Yeah, there is actually a character, the big bad evil guy of the second book of the comic book, who tries to overthrow the control of the narrator by they are or she is sick and tired of being just a pawn in a story for a higher reality, and she's like wants to rewrite all of reality to make a utopia for all characters, which has the side effect that she's not taking into account the consequences of after death and basically dooming everybody to hell through her fake utopia. But yeah. So there is actually an attempt of trying to beat. She actually steals the power of the one character who I mentioned that got beaten by an avatar of God. It's quite weird. She basically gains omniscience more or less, and just starts convolutedly planning and manipulating everything from behind the curtains in a way that only a literally omniscient character could do.
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, sorry. It's your stream. Your just gotta.
It-
I gotta control myself. Oh.
uh, let's see. Looking over some of the stuff. Um,
All right. Yeah. Questions. My job is to ask questions, not to tell you about my stories.
man,
uh,
I could cover the difference between magic and psionics as one because I know that's something that we honestly did differently because I
uh,
was tired of psionics being like, okay, in Akira, it's way too overpowered. Just ridiculous. Like that was a level 1 character. Um, or it's just mental powered magic. And that seems so underwhelming for what it actually could be. So yeah, you've already heard how we got a different resource and fortitude
mhm.
and stats specifically tied to it. But I want you to picture magic as like most games actually talk about it. It's complicated, it's chaotic, it's hard to learn, it's dangerous, you know. So where magic is chaotic, psionics is all about creating shape or form, where
Okay.
magic is about changing style or frequency, like between ice and healing. Um, this is you will now grip things at a distance. So in our system, Jedi are mystics, not mages. The any class that does a telepathic grip at a distance messes with consciousness, including animation, giving life to my guitar right there or my pillows. This is psionics now. Um, magic in our system can actually miscast. So each spell will have a variety of a way that if you miscast, you roll this and it tells you how the spell miscast. It can be everything from something potentially dangerous to just your magic putters out for a moment. But psionics can lose concentration. So psionics is all about opening up your domain. When you have your mind expanded to your domain, anybody that walks in that perimeter, you immediately are aware of their consciousness, and your psionic abilities can work anywhere within that. Um, and we decided that gnomes, like elves for magic, would be the representatives of mysticism because it just makes sense having a small gnome crew working on something with like 300-pound gears and they have psionics or magic. And you've always heard gnomes being referred to as mystical or mythical. So I'm like, hey, they'll be the mystic representative.
I do like the gnomes. They are my favorite race or species or however you want to call it. Uh,
You know, we have a crafty one that's pure mage, psionics, and then one that mixes magic and psionics as their race.
hmm. I think the main reason I like gnomes is, first of all, they're intelligence driven. You're tinkering their way out of a problem, but they don't take themselves too seriously. They know how to have fun and just let loose. And I guess I can identify with that. Just the balance between order and chaos. Just do you have the order and the intellect to? Okay, I'm not an amazing tinkerer, right? I mean that structure, uh, the way of using structure for your advantage, but also being chaotic enough to just not take things too seriously, going just with the vibe. of everything. I like that. I like gnomes.
I think gnomes have been undercredited a lot as something really cool, and making them in our setting like the base representative of mysticism, I thought was a cool step to take towards not only mysticism itself, but giving credence to another species and fantasy style out there that seem to always kind of have something missing. Is that, yeah, they're great tinkerers, yeah, they're kind of cool personality, but like, man, how did they survive unless they're like extremely magical? And all you ever do is see them lifting stuff around, using it to work and craft on stuff, to block your vision of them and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's 100% psionics in our system.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the
I'm getting
funny thing about in the Forgotten Realms, for example, the gnomes are really like most people don't understand how rare they actually are when you're talking about how do they survive, and in the Forgotten Realms is well barely. Uh,
yeah, I think the biggest population in the Forgotten Realms is somewhere in the southwest. It's and you'd have to look up the Eberron book because it tells you if you're doing this in Forgotten Realms, here is the name of the island where artificers exist in Secret Realms. And I think it was mentioning that there's a decent population of gnomes there. So that would be kind of funny, like if gnomes all like traveled to this one little island, just because it's like, well, they won't kill us over here.
I mean, in Eberron, they do have a whole nation to themselves. They aren't that rare, and they are actually excellent spies and great at manipulation and stuff like that. So basically, their strength comes from avoiding open conflict and taking you out before you know it,
Yep,
which makes
that definitely,
sense. What?
definitely sounds like our mystic. It's like, hey, why do you never know they're there? Because the moment you get within 30 feet of them, they duck. And now, if they suppress their presence and put a psionic, oh yeah, psionic energy appears invisible to people who aren't psionic users. So this is how you literally cannot tell someone's a psionic user. If you are a mystic, you will see their third eye in purple on their forehead. So a mystic can tell another mystic is a mystic. But if you're just some fighter and you're walking towards this woods and all of a sudden just out of nowhere something slaps you, you're going to spin around being like, what the heck? And it could be a gnome behind a tree just giggling. Like,
So stand users are psionics in your universe?
uh,
I mean, okay,
I
yeah,
have
it's
not.
a different power system, but I just had to think about it because only a stand user can see a stand.
Okay, well then, yeah, that would fit there. I'm trying to
Plus,
think of like
yeah,
great. No, like the Force. The Force is generically just the best implementing example of what I would say psionics is. I couldn't think of an anime.
but the force is more of an external force, isn't it?
I understand they do that, but think about this. They mess with consciousness by being able to pull thoughts or deny or change your mind with the force wave. You have
I,
them being able to pull and push and lift objects, which would be
like
mystic.
I understand that the way they use the power, like
Mm-hmm.
what they allow you to do, that's a peril. But if I understand it correctly, psionics in your sorry.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. um, as I yeah, if I understand correctly, in your system, psionics do come from your own mind, right? Or
It's also a part of, like, in our world, when I say that magic and psionics are a part of physics, there is much a part of reality is gravity and time. So yes, they're external, but they're also internal, because the fact that you can think and speak is a product of psionic energy manifesting and turning into everything from originally the Agrigori. All physical is their physical interactions, and all art, color, and change is them having danced and interacted and made artwork.
So psionics are the soul, basically.
In a way, your soul will go to the outer spiritual planes. Your mind and memories and dreams will go to the inner um, mental planes, but your body will stay in the physical planes.
Maybe, yeah, for context, I mean soul in the Christian way, right? You have body, soul, and spirit.
Oh,
And oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't mention that because for many people, when they hear soul, they think in the Christian sense, the spirit. Soul is basically your mind, your emotions, your intellect in that sense, right? Whilst the spirit is the actual supernatural component, which um, so. But I
yeah.
guess your world doesn't have that distinction between soul and spirit, or does it?
No. So ours is a shamanic styled setting. So mind,
Shamanic?
body, and
What's that?
soul.
As in
Have you
shaman
heard
or
of shamanism?
shamanic? What does that mean?
Have you heard of shamanism, like a shaman?
Shamanism, yes. Okay, shamanic.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that
So
shamanic was the way to say shaman like.
okay, no
uh,
problem. Yeah, ours seems to be the first shamanic styled role playing game setting. So when you, like, let's say you were a character in our setting, when you die, your body would be left where it is, but
mhm.
your combined mind and soul would go to the appropriate reflection of the material planes. For a human or a very humanoid like thing that's not an animal, they would go more towards the beast lands, but you would go to the dead lands. And from there, you would be sorted. Your mind and all of its logic and perspective would go towards the inner planes of the mental side. Your soul is going to be sorted out into which outer planes its energy now is left. This is your emotion, your response, your feelings. Um, so you were actually separated back into mind, body, and soul so that more energy can continue to circulate inward, because a combination of mind, body, and soul is what makes what we call life. When
Okay.
you die, these things separate into their three places.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
technically,
now.
soul is a little different, but not
Yeah.
too far off in life.
Yeah, I get it. There are some parallels, but it is a different distinction. So, uh, but yeah, interesting that you're. I like I said, I can't really think of a classical fantasy system that has a more shamanistic world view. Like usually, you just have body and soul, and soul is just in a Christian sense. The soul and spirit thrown in together into one,
Mm.
which is basically based on a false understanding how Christianity views it, right? Like many classical fantasy tropes do have uh uh their what's the name have the roots in misunderstood Christian mythology.
Yeah,
So
I've pointed out to people a lot of times that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, if you look at what parts of your body you're actually touching, this could easily be said as the mind, the body, the soul. The mind being the Father, this is the passed down wisdom, intelligence, how to live life that your Father would pass on, and as well as other physical things, which leads you to your body. You received your body because the combination of two minds, one, thine father, and your mother. So now you have your body. This is your physical and everything you can do. What's the Holy Spirit? Your soul. This is the energy that is you. So mind, body, soul, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Actually, it's more like the Father is the soul, the Son is the body, and the Holy Spirit is the Spirit, which is why it's called the Holy Spirit. But I do see the parallels. It is a surprisingly similar system, but if I understand the shamanistic system correctly, it's more like the spirit is split up into mind and soul, and the emotional part is ripped out of soul and put into soul. Well, so
basically, look at the difference as one side is logic, one side's emotion. So, which parts of soul or mind fit either one more? That's where they would go.
Mm-hmm. Now's the question, since we're only two, I'm kind of running out of steam here. If we want to finish the 2 hours, or just be like, okay, we had 1.5 hours. I mean, unless there's more stuff you would definitely want to share, then feel free.
Yeah,
but I'm kind of running out of questions ideas on my side, at least.
No problem. Like, describe the allegory. Describe that.
Like I said, I was not expecting, again, like last time, to be the only question asker.
Hey, it's fine.
Yeah, we need to organize this stuff better. Assumption makes an ass out of you and me, doesn't it?
It's true. I say that at least once a month to somebody. So like Komori crystal technology, I never gave that an actual description. So I want you to picture natural occurring crystals. These crystals can be anything from blanks, or rarely in certain circumstances are imbued with, like, let's say, fire magic. So if you can channel mana, you can use this to cast a fire spell. Very basic. It can get a little more powerful. It won't compare to a fire spell an upper level mage can learn. But this allows for various purposes. One including they can work as a socketable item and add fire resistance to your armor or shield, or fire damage additive to your weapon. Beyond that, if it just has some mana in it, if it's put in the right receptacle, it glows. These are the light bulbs of the Chronicles of the Agrigori setting. This is our Komori crystal tech. If you combine by attaching them, basically using spatial and time magic, you were able to sync them into the same location, even if they're far away, so you can communicate all of vibrations back and forth through them, creating a telephone-like thing. As well as our guns never went to explosions. They don't use gunpowder in this setting. They combine a little roll pin that will roll across 2 Komori crystals, one water and then fire. Since it's done in the right timing, this produces steam and could then launch a projectile. So they used Magitech to create steam tech. So you'll find stuff that is extremely medieval looking, some bit that's kind of Magitech, steam techy looking, and then some stuff that makes you go like, wait, is this a fantasy setting? Yes, we're just combining Magitech really cool. So I'd say that Komori crystals and the technology created by them is definitely a really cool, interesting point. Players can expect to come when we get into the Chronicles of the Agrigori setting, which is our Magitech lower fantasy setting, where Secret Realms is going to be the high fantasy one. And do things like Chi, Ki, and Ryotsu exist in our setting? Yes and no, and that's because of like design structures. First off, I spent so long making martials so much more fun to play, diverse when it comes to selections and options, that we started to have to go, hold up, let's tone this down a little bit, or we're about to switch the martial caster divide over. Because we did stuff to tone down magic. Like, you can't just get higher level and your spells get better. You have to increase their training level per spell. So there's a lot we did to tone magic down. I'm not ready to decide, yeah, upper levels, everybody starts using chi as a martial. That might push it over the edge. It might end up just being a subclass of all martials and some other classes. But yes, it exists. But I'm working on, should it exist as mastery or should it exist as different types of skills? And that's going to come down to balance and, is it fun or not in the way we did it? Other than that, if there's a possible setting, we will eventually have it, including I've learned things like lunar punk, solar punk. These are two different outcomes you could have from cyberpunk. So after our Cyber Tales game module, we're going to have one that's focused on cyberpunk and lunar punk.
I heard about solar punk, but what's lunar punk?
Okay, so you know how solar punk is accepting more of the natural environment, trying to use green tech, solar energy. Put a lack of a focus on technology, keep the attachment to nature, and look at your lights are the photofluorescent, I can't think of it, but the glowing stuff in like mushrooms and different plants. You create more of an aesthetic based off of nature. It's, I guess, more moving towards tribalistic ideas, but keeping high understanding of technology. They may
basically
take excess dust,
biotechnology.
with a major emphasis towards magic, where solar punk is a major emphasis towards technology. It's like nature won either way in cyberpunk, but do you want it to be paired with magic or technology? And that's the 50-50 split that could have happened going from it. It'll be one of our books that has a holographic cover, and it's going to show the same picture, the same city, but one side solar, one side lunar. And so it's a time variant plugin. That's what a lot of our different settings will be, is the ability to morph and change the aesthetic and technology and time period of any other setting.
Right. Yeah, but can you really do any setting? just kidding. Yeah. Just thinking about playing as white, playing as cells in a human body, for example.
Don't tempt me. I have run a game where everybody walked down, sat down, and the first things their character did has to roll dice to make a character.
But okay. I'm starting to feel that my how do you say Stimmbänder? Right. Let's just internet. I know the word, but I don't know. My vocal cords again reaching its limits after being sick for so long and not really talking much for 2 weeks. Yeah.
I hope it gets better for you.
What?
I hope it gets better for you.
It is getting better, definitely, but it's been a slow process. I don't know what it get last week, but it just knocked me off my socks to such a degree. Like, I can't remember the last time I was this sick. But yeah, I definitely feel way better. but I can still feel the side effects in my vocal cords and just still producing a bit more slime than I normal do. Okay, I don't, this is starting to get geeky. I don't, maybe I should go into detail on stream. But yeah, I mean, we have 1 hour and 40 minutes for with only 2 people. I think that's a good number. So I think it's a good moment to stop the stream. Unless you want to add some final thing, now's your chance.
Well, we are actually within the final month of finishing up the playtest document, and we'll begin working on the playtest module that's to include with it, which themed around the mechanics and technicians and marshals only. We will be having an Old West train heist as our first mission, including 3 technicians, 3 marshals, and 1 dual grouping, our gunner. So from the beginning, we'll be testing guns and this setting.
Right.
Should have an update within a month. And patent for our whole game system is about 3 weeks away.
All right. Wish you luck with that one. All right, then. That's it from us. Thank you, everybody who joined. So we're watching in the future. And
Even Matsuba said,
yeah. See you.